All right. Welcome, everyone, to this LH Accelerator Demo Week 2020. We are so excited to have you all with us for 3 days of discussion on innovation in the construction space. My name is Jules Besnenu. I'm a director at Cleantech Group, and I will be your moderator for the day. So for those of you who haven't been involved in the LH Accelerator yet, the Demo Week really represents the end of the support journey for the 12 startups that were selected for season 2 of the Accelerator. It's an important week in which these companies will have the opportunity to showcase their innovation and all of the work that they completed during the acceleration. It's also obviously a key moment for the innovation community at Sika, LH, and CCCC. And so before going any further, I'd love to introduce Sandra Boivin, who leads the LH Accelerator initiative, to tell you a few words about the program and the week ahead of us. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello, and welcome to everyone. So welcome to this demo week, which marks the end of the second season of the LH Accelerator. For those not familiar with the program, it's been launched by LafargeHolcim in partnership with Sika and CCCC to create new business opportunities with the best innovative companies in the sector. So the program in a nutshell, it's quite unique for several reasons. First of all, the presence of 3 international corporate companies. It is a key asset for the startups to address diverse business opportunities across the construction value chain. The second differentiating factor is the commitment of countries in our operations from the, from the very identification of challenges to address. You will see later in the innovator session that our country operational teams have worked hand in hand with the startups. You see here the countries involved from the start, but you will see also in the innovator session that additional ones joined in later on. Finally, the expert mobilization from our R&D centers and the access to the lab and the prototyping facilities is a key differentiator of this program. So 12 startups have been selected for this season 2 from more than 300 applications. They come from Israel, Canada, Germany, France, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Sweden. The skills and solutions they provide encompass material science, AI, robotics, sensors, decarbonization, circular economy. So it's a wealth of knowledge and additional skills that were welcome on board. We had the pleasure and still the possibility at the time to kickstart season 2 last year during the sprint days. Since then, this second season had to adjust to the COVID-19 situation and to remain flexible despite country lockdowns and travel bans to carry out the 12 acceleration plans, the 12 action plans you see on this slide that we had put together. So thank you all for your flexibility, your creativity, and your resilience in these difficult times. And I'm very proud and happy that we can showcase the outcome of this hard work. So a few words about the demo week. We organized the presentation of the program and the discussion around 3 focus areas. So today, the future of concrete. Tomorrow, we will talk about IoT, robotics, and AI. And on Thursday, we will see also the decarbonization and circular economy topics, which are really key for industry, as you all know. So we hope that you will join us tomorrow also and on Thursday for showcasing and looking at the exciting projects that we will be discovering during these sessions. So without further delay, let's introduce the topic of the day, the future of concrete. So the call for application was opened with the following expectation: enhance the properties of cement-based materials beyond the core value of structural integrity. So it's a very wide topic, and it tackles the topic of functionalization of concrete, but also enhanced properties in the fresh and hardened state. And it gives opportunity to revisit production of the material, delivery, and also end user benefits. It is key for LH in our differentiation strategy to answer our customer needs and pain points. So I will let you discover the agenda of the day, but before, I would like to warmly thank Dr. Ravindra Gettu and Dr. Robert Flatt for accepting to set the scene today with some inspirational insights. So I wish you all a very pleasant event. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, for this introduction. So here's how we're going to spend the next 2 hours together. We'll start with a roundtable during which 2 experts will bring us their vision on the future of concrete. We'll then hear short presentations from the 4 startups selected by the accelerator on the future of concrete topic. And after a short Q&A session, we will move to innovator demos. So this is where we will move to breakout rooms in which you will be able to engage directly with the 4 startups that are presenting today in 2 times 30 minutes to really dive deep into their technologies and the work they've done in the accelerator. We've chosen to make this demo week 100% virtual, and the idea is to have you be as active as you would be at an in-person event. We've tried to design it to be as interactive as possible. And so really to start us on this interactive footing, I'd like to welcome Alban Jourda, who is the coordinator of the LH Accelerator, to ask you all a first question today. Welcome, Alban.
Thanks, Jules, and welcome everyone to the LH Accelerator Demo Week 2020. I'm going to spend my time in this session encouraging you all to become active in the chat, as well as listening to our great speakers. To start off, I'd like to ask you a first question, and please feel free to use the chat on the right and of the screen, and you can enter a number 1, 2, 3, or 4 to answer the following question. According to you, which statement best represents your view? First option, the concrete of the future is sustainable, reducing material use while maximizing durability. Second option, the concrete of the future is performance with concretes that are more resistant, set faster, and can stand hill. The third option, the concrete of the future is more accessible to emerging markets, premixed, lighter, easier to move around, and does not compete with drinking water. And the last point and last option could be the concrete of the future is all of the above. Feel free to add some color if you wish to and introduce yourself. So let's start right now. Thanks.
All right, and we're starting to see a lot of answers on the chat, and I'll take this time maybe to say the chat is how we will all communicate during this session, so feel free to use it, overuse it, introduce yourselves, say a few words, feel free to engage other people in the chat, and of course, if you have questions for our panelists or for our presenters, please put them there so that we can bring them up during the conversation and make sure that this is as interactive and fun as possible. So Alban, I'll turn back to you. I see that some answers are starting to be in there. So any sense on kind of 1 to 4?
It seems that 4 is a good option for most of you. So I will give you a trend. Let's continue, but the trend is good on 4.
All right, and we made it easy for you all by adding this 4, but okay. All right, so to really dive into this question and to better understand this picture, we have invited and we're thrilled to have with us 2 of the leading minds in building materials, and we have a chance to have a discussion with each of them, get their sense on the future of concrete, and really try to lay the groundwork to understand where is innovation happening and how can some of the accelerator startups play in this ecosystem. So I'm thrilled to have with us for our first conversation, Robert Flatt, who is a professor at ETH Zurich and really one of the leading minds in building materials. Welcome, Robert. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, thanks for being with us. I'd like to start by asking you the same question that we just asked the audience, meaning, in your view, what does the concrete of the future look like?
I kind of say that it looks maybe more diverse than today, in the sense that I think point number one of reducing environmental impact is very important, and that goes along with finding more efficient solutions with local materials. And so I would say that is one of the directions, and I would say also leaner construction and leaner concrete, meaning concrete with less cement and construction with less concrete.
So maybe we'll pick on some of those elements, but to start us off, could you try to help us understand what the innovation landscape looks like in concrete today? What are some of the most important subjects that are being worked on?
So an important subject is substituting clinker by supplementary cementitious materials. And coming from Switzerland, I like to use the following example. We allowed to substitute cocoa butter in our chocolate with palm oil, but we only allow 5%, and the taste should not change. And with cement, we try to substitute 50% of the real stuff by something else, and the properties should not change. So there's a big challenge to achieve that, and a lot of different approaches, but still a long way to go. So, and then I think that I would say that is one of the big topics. The question of durability remains an active subject of research. I don't see it developing substantially more over the past years than previously. Very clearly, I think we come to that also later, the topic of digital fabrication is gaining a lot of interest, and whether or not this delivers its promises is, I think, an open question.
So maybe we leave the topic of sustainability for now to come back to it later. In terms of really performance and properties of the concrete of the future, are you seeing things like, just faster setting, for instance, or self-repair even come up in some of the research that you're involved in?
Well, I think that I see a big challenge to have robust formulations with less clinker. And that can take different ways, but certainly we need to boost the hydration, but we don't want that hydration to be boosted before the concrete is delivered. We need to accommodate for the use of materials with a greater variability. So I think that questions of rapid and insightful adaptations of mixed design, feedback loops in fresh properties of concrete are certainly an area where developments would bring a lot. If that's really the direction we'll take, I'm not sure, but I think it is something necessary in order to enable the use of concrete with low clinker contents.
Got it. So maybe moving back to this question of digital fabrication, I think this is an area where you spend a lot of your time. Do you think it holds promise for the future of concrete, or is it a bit of a double-edged sword in terms of sustainability?
It is very much a double-edged sword in the sense that a big part of the argumentation is about making construction more effective and cheaper, which can be equated to more sustainable, but not necessarily. And present processes use mixed designs that contain a lot of paste, a lot of cement. They're very often over-designed in terms of final performance in view of processing requirements. So that increases the environmental impact, but if done well, you can have a gain by having constructions that require less material. The question is, are you going to compensate enough the increase of the footprint of your material with a design that requires less material to be used? So I think there are a lot of good intentions. There's a great potential and a lot of very exciting things to look at and to try. But in terms of real ultimate performance and benefit for questions of sustainability, I think the jury's still out there.
Got it. Well, maybe finishing with that question of sustainability, where do you see the potential for the most environmental gain in the concrete process today?
Well, I think there's two main factors. There is going to cements with lower clinker contents and going to concrete with less cement. And these are things that have been going on for many years, where there's been a lot of incremental progress, where if you look back over the years, the integral of all that is very substantial. One number that I like to quote as a combination during the Kyoto Protocol duration, Switzerland, or the Swiss cement industry, reduced CO2 emissions in an amount that correspond to 30% of the whole country's objective. And if you look at it on a discrete point from month to month, from year to year, you don't see the difference. But over the years, it's a very big impact. And there's still more to do. I think that challenges in particular of workability, of control of the setting, of control of the properties during transportation, these are more challenging than were before. And I think that a lot of work is needed there, but there's also a lot of potential to deliver very effective solutions.
Got it. And I'll come back to you with some more questions, but maybe before we go to Ravindra for a few minutes, Alban, is there anything from the chat that we should be aware of, or any different trends on the icebreaker question?
No specific question. Maybe just we can highlight that first reply was more turned to the concrete of the future is all of the above. And the second result is turned to sustainability, the first point. So interesting. And Ravindra participates to this session, and I think he highlights specifically the concrete of the future is more accessible to emerging markets. So I think it's a good introduction to follow up with him right now.
All right. Well, thanks, Robert. And for our second conversation, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Ravindra Gettu, who's a professor of civil engineering at ITT Madras and the president of the RILIM Association. Ravindra, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sure I can.
All right. Here you are with the trees. Good to see you. Maybe same question to you as to all of us. Can you give us your vision for the concrete of the future?
I would like to compliment what Robert had said. I think he touched on all the important keywords that we have to keep in mind. I would like to emphasize the importance of emerging markets, because that is where the large volumes of concrete are being used and will continue to be used. So there I would try to bunch the changes that could happen in two buckets. One is translational, where we know more or less how things can work. We have made them work in the lab, but we'd like to get them into the field, such as speed of construction. So we know that in emerging economies, we want to get things done faster. We want construction to be very fast. It affects not only the cost of the project, but also the delivery of what we need to give to the people. Next is sustainability. It would be very interesting to note that in India, 75% of cement is made with either fly ash or with slag. So it has just happened that the cement in India has become more sustainable because we wanted more cement. There wasn't enough clinker to go around. So people started looking around for waste to put into the cement. So I think this is something that will continue to happen. Construction will be leaner. This is again something that Robert touched upon. And a third aspect that I would like to try to see in innovation is dummy proofing concrete. Make the concrete such that it cannot go wrong. Because a lot of times as designers, as structural designers, we say how concrete should perform. So what happens if things go wrong? Can still the concrete perform as required? So I emphasize a lot the need to dummy proof concrete, that in spite of things going wrong, it should give the performance required. Then the other basket I would say is transformational, things that will change completely. And that I would say things like finishes. We know how to make a good structure, but what we need to do is how to make it look nicer, to give people the feel that they want.
So
finishes are important in innovations that we see. Similarly, repair, retrofitting, so that we can change the place that we use. If we find that something is not adequate, can we change it quickly instead of demolishing and reconstructing? Can we increase the load carrying capacity? Can we make rooms larger? So these are things that I think will drive innovations in the future.
That's a very complete picture. So, but as you were saying, most of the demand for the concrete of the future will come from developing markets. So your expertise in one specific developing market is really interesting and is invaluable. Can you focus on India for a few seconds and maybe tell us about what are the key use cases there, and how things must change in the future?
Well, in India, we need a lot of concrete in the future for housing and for infrastructure. So this is where there will be a lot of demand. So we need more cement, we need more concrete. So certainly that is not going to go wrong. All predictions show that we will need a lot of concrete. So this means that we have to produce more volumes, we have to construct faster. So that is the reason that the first emphasis I would look at is ease of construction, speed of construction, and the availability of material that can be used easily, that it should not go wrong at the site. You do not need experts all the time to make the concrete go right. I think that would be the emphasis that I would look at.
What are some of the challenges on the ground? I mean, you were talking last time about shortage in labor, and even just like not wide use of ready mix. Can you speak to that?
Very true. And that is sometimes shocking to people when they realize that not more than about 10 or 20% of concrete is made by ready mix agencies or plants. So most of the concrete is made at the site. So this could be a small site that is cramped and you end up making concrete on the road, or in very harsh situations where you cannot maintain the rigor that would happen in a plant. And you do not have labor. A lot of these are temporary laborers, temporary people who are unskilled, who are working in the construction site. So we cannot expect rigor and skill to be involved in concrete construction. Secondly, the shortage of water is very important. We are competing between providing good water for concrete to be made and cured, whereas we also have people in the same areas who are thirsty for water, who may be even dying of lack of water. So these are issues which are very important to consider when we promote new materials. We look at concrete becoming more and more extensive in emerging markets like ours.
Right. So speed, making it as easy as possible, and maybe let's come back on this question of water, because it feels striking that a lot of the emerging economies that will consume most of the concrete in the decades to come are most of the times in water-strapped areas, right? How are there solutions on the ground to solve this competition between drinking water and water for concrete?
Well, for me, the easiest solution to adapt is not to use drinking water, but use water that we can extract from sewage, from wastewater, what I call mining of water from sewages. See, a lot of water is treated and let into freshwater lakes and so on, or to the sea. If we can insist, and I would like to see even legislation in India saying that one cannot use water that is meant for drinking, but water should be taken, cleaned up as much as possible. We do not have to perfectly making it drinking water quality, but it could be industrial grade that is good enough for concrete. Other than that, we can always work on the concrete side, decreasing the requirement of water. There are solutions where you have carbon dioxide curing, which does not require water. But now the need is to make sure that we do not compete with people for drinking water. If we do so, we are forcing people to make concrete with bad water, and this is going to be a durability problem in the coming future.
Maybe one follow-up question from the chat that I see from Bart van der Woord, who says that sand that is appropriate for concrete may also be a problem in India. Do you see that on the field as well?
Well, sand is becoming a problem. See, we've always traditionally used natural sand from rivers, but now we are going into what is common in many parts of Europe, using crushed sand. And that is slowly coming in, and I think that will be the future. I hope to see sand and aggregates extracted from demolition waste coming in. And again, that is again starting, but I hope to see that in the future becoming a big player as far as aggregates are concerned.
All right, thanks, Ravindra. I have one question for you and for Robert, which is, we're going to hear about, we're going to hear presentations from 4 companies in a few minutes. Do you have thoughts on how startups can play a role in solving some of these innovation challenges? Maybe we start with Robert.
Sure. Well, I mean, there's a number of ways they can contribute. I tend to think that questions dealing with sensors, feedback loops in terms of quality of manufacturing is an area where there is a need, which is clearly outside of the core competence of the current big players. I think clearly the cement and concrete industry have moved to the notion of better concrete rather than just large volumes. However, to some extent, they need to get a payback on that. And let me just take an example. And of course, the picture is much broader than this. But if we're talking about doing a lean concrete with, let's say, less cement, you want to get some kind of payback on that, I assume. And then somehow the startup has to fit in to make that possible, but they need to leave enough to the big players, because if not, they're going to have a really tough time to get into the market. So I think there's a question there that they can play an important role in, I think, changing a paradigm of value generating towards systems where, let's say, quality has a higher role, and the quality is in the service of sustainability. But the economics behind are not necessarily propense to allow startups to develop in some areas of the business. So that would kind of be a first general comment.
Interesting. So challenging market in your opinion, from what I gather. Ravindra, any thoughts on that?
Well, I'd add to what Robert has mentioned. In 2 areas, I think the startups have an edge. One is they do not know that it cannot be done. When we look at people like me, when we are talking about construction, people like me will immediately tell you why something cannot be done, why something is not following the code, something that will not stand. But the young startups don't know that it cannot be done. So they can come up with solutions that experts have not thought of. Secondly, I think the startups can take risks that large companies with large overheads cannot. So as Robert very correctly said, the future, the business has to be through the large companies. But for these 2 reasons, new ideas can be shown to work by the startups that nobody else can.
All right. Well, big thanks to you two for bringing us your insights today. We'll come back to you after the company presentations to get your reactions, see if, you have any thoughts on the 4 presentations that are going to follow. So again, thanks a lot to you two for your time and for your insights today. Before we go to the company presentations, I did want to pass on the microphone to my colleague Julia, who wants to tell us a bit more about how the Whova platform works and how you can make the most of it over the next 3 days. Welcome, Julia.